This is TBC Television with This Week in Perspective, being brought to you by me, Adam Simbeye. Of late, Tanzanians in the country, and especially in Dar es Salaam, have been having serious power cuts and experiencing some very difficult problems in terms of provision of electricity, which is very basic and essential. Usually irregular power cuts, sometimes 3 times a day or once a whole day for a number of hours. This of course, people assume there is an unannounced power shedding and indeed rationing in the country. But TANESCO has not come out publicly to state that there will be power shedding or there is power shedding going on. It was generally believed that power problems were a thing of the past, unlike a few years back. Whether or not there is power shedding or indeed power problem is a topic of our discussion today. And I'm joined by 3 panelists here. I'll explain why we don't have the fourth, which is represented from the TANESCO. On the right is Hussein Kamote, who is actually basically an economist, but he was a director of policy and research at the Confederation of Tanzania Industries, retired but not tired. Vast experience in issues of energy, particularly in the manufacturing sector. On the left is Joseph Mwamyange, a media consultant, senior journalist for that matter, and he has written in the past and currently so much about power problems in the country, reflecting on within the country and outside the country. And last but not least, Tony Zakaria, who also is a senior media consultant, and he has also written so much about power problems in Tanzania. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Viewers, it would have been very unfair to have a discussion on power problems if I told there are problems, which it seems for all intents and purposes there are problems, without a panelist or representative from the company that handles these matters, the company that has a monopoly to provide electricity to this country, that is TANESCO. Unfortunately, at the last minute, the individual engineer who was tasked to come and take part in the discussion just opted out, and he said he won't make it. Now, at the last minute when we are coming into the studio, you say you can't make it, there's no way we are going to postpone the discussion. So with the 3 people, panelists here, I know they are able, we'll go ahead and they'll give justice to the topic because it is indeed a problem. They will confirm. Viewers, let's have a discussion. Let's have a goal on this. Hussein Kamote, is there really power shedding in the country, or there is no power shedding in the country? Why is it that many parts of the city in Dar es Salaam, and individuals are complaining in specific areas in Dar es Salaam, having very serious problem with the power problem? Do we have shedding?
Yeah, to me, I think when you are talking about power shedding, this is an announced kind of electricity supply problem in the country. Say the TANESCO, the government says from this hour to this hour, a certain part of the city, a certain part of the country will miss electricity. That is what you can call power shedding. Is a formalized kind of power shedding. What we are seeing today is poor power supply, especially in Dar es Salaam. Is poor power supply because it is announced. You don't know when that is going to happen. And that is, there's several reasons why this power is very poor currently. Mainly, I think, is on the distribution aspect. The distribution system, especially in big city like Dar es Salaam, has been there for many years. I know TANESCO currently is trying to rehabilitate some of these power stations, but yet that is not good enough to go completely with an announced power shedding. So what I can conclude in this matter is that we don't have actual power shedding. We have poor supply of power, which are two different things. The poor supply happens without a notice, a shedding happens when there's a notice.
But with the poor power supply, Hussein Kamote, does that translate to power being cut off and announced anytime?
Yes,
for hours?
Yes, it is true. And the problem is big, especially in the residential areas. These are where the problems are. I've tried to consult some of the manufacturers, asking them if this kind of power shedding or poor power supply is happening to their industries. The answer I got from them is that not really. At least now there is a stable power supply in their industries. But those industries which are located outside the industrial area are the ones who are suffering. So what is going on now, I think, is a poor is cuts and announced cuts, especially in the residential area. But of course, industries which are located within the industrial area are facing the same problem. But for those industries which are located in industrial area, I think TANESCO is giving them some preferences of having a regular power supply.
These are manufacturing industries,
manufacturers,
which you used to talk much about in those days with the CTI.
Yeah, they have the problems. Their problems are totally different from those of residential, because what they're experiencing is power voltage. Sometimes you have higher voltage, sometimes you have low voltage, and that is also is bad thing for manufacturers, because currently most of the plants are running on most sophisticated kind of machines. So a small dip that can cause a lot of harm.
Or a small raise in
exactly.
voltage capacity can kill a machine.
Can kill a machine.
But that is equally true with the domestic as well.
Yes.
The only thing is, in this country, we don't have the habit of suing TANESCO, because people's domestic appliances in the house get banned. Refrigerators, music system, TVs, because of this poor quality of power being cut off and a notice and or fluctuation in terms of voltage. Joe, you have written so much about these things. We heard you had come out to say. Do you have similar experiences?
Surprisingly, I'll be very honest with you. Surprisingly, is that where I stay, we don't have such a problem. But I have friends who are staying in the Mikocheni area, light industrial area.
Beach, Africana,
yes, they have this problem.
Jangwani.
So I think it's a question of TANESCO, not TANESCO, sorry. TANESCO looking at their priorities and looking at how they supply power within the CBD of Dar es Salaam and the outlying areas. I think there's a problem, especially, I'm seeing this problem more so in Kinondoni. Kinondoni, I think, is more pronounced than Ilala or Temeke. I don't know what it is, but like you said, if you have irregular power supply or power supply that's not stable, things can get banned. You were talking about suing TANESCO. I think the other problem we have is we have a clientele of TANESCO, the customers that haven't taken trouble to read the customer service charter of TANESCO, because there are so many things that they could do. They could even take TANESCO to task, even take the TANESCO to, I think there is a Consumer Consultative Council or something, you know. But since people are not interested in reading the charter, you know, they would take TANESCO to task. And one other thing I've noticed is where I stay in Tabata area, which is part of Ilala, where the engineer in charge of Tabata, who is now the engineer of Ilala, you know, he created a group of customers in that area. So it's very interactive. Whenever there is a problem, whenever we see maybe there is a pole that's fallen down, it's been hit by a car, these are reported instantly and they are attended to, you know, at a very fast pace. So you see now we have a contrast. You have a TANESCO where Mr. Kamote stays and where you stay, they are doing badly, and you have another area where they're doing okay. But that's not the way parastatal should go. I know in parastatal there's a lot of bureaucracy, maybe in making decisions and the like, and the lack of investment that TANESCO hadn't done for a very long time, even the coming of Net Group Solutions. I think we had discussed this at this program. So maybe in where they're having problems, maybe they haven't done a lot of rehabilitation to the infrastructure there. Maybe they are doing that right now, but we can just speculate, because the person that would have come from TANESCO would have told us why there are such problems there.
Yes, it's unfortunate that at last minute he opted out, but it was very crucial.
Yeah, it was.
And I hope TANESCO will not blame us for discussing issues without providing the solution or answers to the real problems that are there, and whether TANESCO is really having his rough or not. But what can we do? We couldn't force him to come. Tony, what's your take on this?
Let me first start with a little background. It is true in my heart and in many hearts, TANESCO is loved.
Is what?
We love TANESCO.
Okay.
Why? Because we need TANESCO. We need each other. We are here in the comfort of this studio with electricity, air conditioning because of TANESCO. Now, TANESCO has come a long way. The TANESCO, the Dar es Salaam Electricity Company, it started in the 50s and 60s, used to supply very few customers. We also remember the crisis we had in the 2005-2010 with power supply, where we had sometimes up to 14 hours of power rationing.
Yes.
So, to give credit where it's due, they have come a long way from that bad situation. And coverage in terms of customers in towns and even in rural areas has gone up. Their generation capacity, we see they are generating almost, I think, 1,500 megawatts. And the dependency on water, on hydropower, has gone down, even though I must say during the 3 years of Magufuli it has been raining almost non-stop. We are not really depending on hydropower to feed the nation. I remember when I applied the first time for a small structure I have built to have electricity installed, it was such a cumbersome process. You had to know somebody, you had to visit many times. It cost quite a bit of money in those years. One pole, they count, if you need 5 poles, then the first pole, they charge you 15,000. The second pole, I don't know, 10,000. The third electricity pole, 5,000. And everyone after that, 5,000. If you are living 400 meters away, you spent a lot of money just paying for that service line. Nowadays, they are putting service lines depending on customers, and everybody gets connected at almost a flat rate. So they have come a long way in terms of giving the service. But now we are seeing almost like we are going back to the old bad TANESCO, where you don't know what is happening. They have not been giving out information. I live in Mbezi, and I have a...
Which Mbezi?
Mbezi Beach. I have a security system in my house, and I can see which times it was off because it is recording. So there is no day where it has gone on continuously without an interruption for between half an hour and 5 to 6 hours a day. This is not normal. I work in the Boko, Bunju, Mbweni area at St. Joseph College. There were 3 days where we had completely no electricity. After the rains, there was heavy rains that happened like 2 weeks ago. They have a power transformer inside our compound, and it got flooded, I think.
Okay.
And I don't know why it is on the ground. Most transformers should be raised so that they are protected. So there were short circuits in all the buildings, and we had to take out the wiring and do a rewiring. The first day, because we didn't know where the problem was, we couldn't even run generators, because you run generators in places where you have short circuited, you blow out everything. We have computers, we have equipment for teaching and stuff. So after the fundis went through, the second day we ran generators the whole time, from morning till evening. You run generators the third day.
And generators are supposed to be run throughout the day. They are standby.
But
Yes.
they did have power.
Source of power.
You don't have power, you have to do classes, you have offices, you have payments to make. Running generators is the most expensive thing, not just for business, even for individuals. If you are running generators for 4 or 5 hours a day in your home, it blows your budget. It's not something you want to do. So this TANESCO, what happened to the TANESCO which we used to know? We don't have a shortage of power. We are generating enough. Therefore, as a power generator, TANESCO is doing fine. Perhaps we don't have such a shortage of distribution, because we see all the 33 kV, 11 kV, or 220 lines going in every nook and cranny. Even in rural areas, people are craving for TANESCO. I've seen the Minister of Energy saying, give them electricity, even if they don't have corrugated iron sheets in their houses. That's great. But then, what about us? Dar es Salaam is the center for commerce of the country. It's the center for learning. Many colleges are here, many secondary schools and high schools.
And the manufacturing sector is
It's
bigger
the
here.
center for manufacturing. Without reliable power and without reliable information, because there may be problems, but they should be communicating that we are load shedding during the day because we want to supply the industrial area. So forgive us if we are not giving you power.
In the past, to cut you short, TANESCO was trying its best, putting an announcement in the newspaper as well as on the
television stations, yes,
saying there will be no power in this particular area, Kinondon North or South, whatever, from this time to this time, because they were cutting trees on the lines. Now, of course, some of us were a bit skeptical, because you can't give that reason every month. You are cutting trees. Once you cut the trees, you cut the trees. They don't grow every month. But at least there was a notice. Now it's quiet. We don't hear. You just suddenly see, poof, there's no power.
Yeah.
What's wrong?
Not just having no notice. You know, 2 days ago, I came back home. I found TANESCO technicians had gone into my compound and cut 2 mango trees and a guava tree, and I was angry. I said, "What has this got to do with?" They say, "Well, you know, the transmission line is there and the trees are growing, so they say they better cut now that they won't interfere with the transmission." We are trying to protect the environment. I can tell you, I've been jokingly telling my friends, do you know why there's no rain in Kariako or there's no rain in parts of Ilala up to the airport? Because we have made a concrete jungle instead of a mixture of houses and trees. You can see there are many days when it rains in Mbezi Beach, Mikocheni, and parts of up to Tegeta,
Bahari,
because there are still trees there. These other places which are bare, and now we can see that in Mbweni area, people have built up, all the trees have been cut. They don't get the same rain that is falling on Tegeta or Kunduchi or Mbezi Beach. Now TANESCO is coming and using the excuse they are cutting your trees even before asking for the courtesy of permission.
Yeah. Now, Hussein Kamote, I mean, how serious is the problem?
Well, to me, I think he's, yes, it's a problem, but not as bad as it used to be. You know, in the past, we had a very big problem with TANESCO. The problem was inadequate power supply. Because
Generation?
Generation, in the generation as part of it, that was a big problem. If you don't have generation, then that is a big problem. It takes years to build capacity in generation. And also, I think we don't have much problem, even now, of transmission. Of course, they are trying now to remove the 220 kV to 400 that can so that we have enough power in cities like Dar es Salaam. That can be a little bit problem in transmission. In my thinking, I think we have a small problem in the distribution, and that's why. The reason is why I think there's a little bit of monopoly. Let me be frank here. Competition sometimes is very good for business provision of services. If you read the Electricity Act of 2008, it provides for private sector to participate in the distribution and in the generation. They haven't said about transmission, and I know transmission is very expensive. The private sector is not given that report participate in the transmission, and of course they couldn't bear the cost of transmission. But now we have TANESCO, which is a giant parastatal. I don't know how many people are employed in TANESCO. It's a very big. It has an integrated aspect of production, that is generation, transmission, up to distribution. This is cumbersome procedure. If you read now throughout the world, and even the developing countries like Tanzania, in Uganda, for example, they have given the private sector the role of distribution, so that companies are competing. If, Mr. Simbe, you are not providing me good services, I just keep you, I go to town, and things like that. But Tanzania has this act. I don't know, and I'm not sure whether the regulation for that act have been prepared. And if you don't have the regulations, it becomes very difficult for private sector to participate in the distribution, so that they can cause competition, like we see in the telecom sector. You remember during those days where TTCL was the only company, it was very difficult to talk. But now even my mom at home at the village, she can afford to have a phone. So competition is healthy for the economy.
So but what are you suggesting?
Well, that is what I'm trying to say. When I was in CTI, we conducted a study on electricity in Tanzania, and one of the recommendations we gave was to disbandle this TANESCO. It is too big parastatal.
Disbandle or
Unbundling.
reduce?
Unbundling, so that I'm used there. Unbundling TANESCO. So that at least we have to retain one aspect, that is transmission. Generation, let even private sector operate. Distribution, let even private sector operate. Of course, in the generation, we know today that the private sector is participating. But of course, a lot of problems there. We know IPTL downs because of this capacity charge. And I think it's not a problem with the private sector, because still TANESCO was the sole provider of distribution. So even if I'm with the private sector generating my electricity, and that electricity has to be bought by TANESCO, only this one buyer. If I don't charge capacity charge, how do I recover my cost? I should be paid capacity charge so that I recover my cost during that time when TANESCO using its own facilities. So, but unfortunately, that is a story. I think the government will work out to smooth out this, what has happened, to make sure that private sector participate in the generation where it was there before, and also make these regulations so that the private sector participate in the distribution. This will increase competition. And when you increase the competition in economics, we assume that efficiency is going to be there. But with the only TANESCO, I think it will take years before we we expect to get the maximum and efficiency services like in other countries. Not in Europe. People think in Europe is very far away. But you go even to Kenya, go to Rwanda, you don't see what is happening in Tanzania. And even if it is happening, we have to be informed. This time, during this, about 2 years ago, the customer services in TANESCO is going back to 10 years ago. 5 years, the service provision and the customer care was improved. I don't know what is happening now. TANESCO doesn't want to inform people that there's going to be a power cut. Maybe they are afraid. If you do that, maybe you'll be seen that you don't perform. But that is mandatory. You have to inform me so that I get prepared. Even if I have my house, I have to switch off my fridges and television so they're not burned. But these good practices of customer care, which was building up in TANESCO, it's not happening now. Why?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. If there was TANESCO here, would have answered that. Yes, Joe.
But you know, one funny thing is, like I said in my introductory remarks, you know, it's a contrast. We're talking about two TANESCOs here. You know, there is one TANESCO, but two. I'm not trying to defend TANESCO. You know, TANESCO, like Kamote says, they're doing very badly in this area. But where I stay, they're doing very well, according to my perception. Not my perception, for what I've seen. What I've seen, you know. In my area, we have this group where TANESCO and us integrate. You know, we talk every day. It's a WhatsApp group, you know. And all the problems are relayed. Anytime they want to cut power, they tell us. That's like it was in the past. They tell us. We have, and they have told us that from now up to June, there are certain rehabilitations they're doing at the Ubungo plant there with Siemens, the foreign company. They're doing this up to June, you know. So there will be power interruptions, even though it's not very specific. But the other aspects of power cuts that we have in our area, they are all communicated to us. That's what I'm saying, that TANESCO should put its act together. Because if you have Mr. Kamote there complaining about TANESCO that the power is irregular, you know, the stability of the power, just Sauda, you know, Sauda Kilmanga. She was just telling me, I was telling her, I'm going to this program, TANESCO. I said, oh, Joseph, just the other day, power came back and my bulbs blew up. You know? Then I told her, but this thing is not happening where I stay. I'm not saying it's not happening in your area. But this TANESCO must put their act together if they have to be respected.
Yeah, I mean,
and
you
know,
cut you short,
yes.
I know I won't disturb your train of thought. I mean, why should there be a disparity or no commonality?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, you know, that's why I'm saying that.
Oh, customer care or customer service.
You know, if you know, if you look at, I'm not trying to speak for that engineer. He created that group when he was in Tabata. Then he was transferred somewhere else. Then he came back. He became now Ilala. It's Ilala is a region of TANESCO. Yes. You know, in Ilala we have these groups of TANESCO, you know, and they relay this message to us. And the same TANESCO in Temeke is not there. That's what I'm saying.
Even in Kinondoni?
In Kinondoni it's not there. Why should it be like that? That's why I'm saying TANESCO should put its acts together before things get worse. Because, you know, with this president we have, some people might get fired because he doesn't want jokes. You know, when people complain, he listens and it just says, "Oh, you can't deliver, you are gone."
I am teaching a course at St. Joseph's University in Boko, the College of Health Sciences, about management. And one of the principles of management and the management system that we are using for a company like TANESCO is a bureaucratic management system where things have to follow the chain of command. Now, I like to agree with my brother here, Kamote, that TANESCO is too big for what it is doing. I don't believe, personally, a company of the size of TANESCO can do the work of generating power in Kilatu with big hydro turbines, and then all the way to Ubungo and Kinyerezi with these gas turbines throughout the country. They do a network of distribution, electricity distribution, that goes to Ndorwe and Mruma and Kibondo and
across
and
to
Tunduma, yeah, and some of it going even to Kenya. And that same TANESCO, when my mother's house has a problem with a cutout fuse, in Kibosho there, they are going to come and solve it. Because in the bureaucratic system of management, somebody has to fill a form to request the supplies from a store, and somebody has to approve, and somebody has to be authorized to go and pick it and give it to whoever. That's why we're saying TANESCO should really, and the country should look at it from a critical perspective. What is TANESCO? What is TANESCO's strength? And clearly their strength is in power generation. Their strength is in transmission, transmitting the electricity. Their strength cannot be in dealing with small customers. That's why now the small customers have been sidelined. They are giving electricity to industry. That's clear. That's why Ilala is receiving favor. That's where most of the industries are. What is happening with our places like Mbezi and Mikocheni, Boko, there are people who have started industries there, and it is not a designated industrial area. And they are consuming a lot of electricity without the support network to bring that much electricity to the area. And so I would say Kamote is right. TANESCO should take the responsibility of the big jobs: power generation, power transmission, and enforcing a certain standard. But we should open the door in provinces, in districts, for TANESCO itself if they have the capacity, but for anybody else who has the capacity to distribute. If they put a big switch there, we are giving you 10 megawatts of power. At the end of the month, we will come and read the meter. How much you have used, how much you have taken from your customers, pay us your money. They'll get their money. And if they have capacity in that district, they themselves can put staff to do that. But there are places where they shouldn't even invest. They should let other people invest in distributing and
Kamote, to the best of my understanding, even the power tariffs, they're not really standardized or common. I mean, I heard once, a certain clientele pays slightly higher tariff per unit, and a certain clientele they don't. So, for example, when I tell my friends that I spend 144 units in 5, 6, 7 days, which is almost 50,000 shillings, they say, well, no, I only spend about 10, 15,000 shillings. So why is this disparity as an economist?
Yeah, I know there is preferences given to families or houses which are not spending more than 60, I think 60 or 70, 60. Yeah, if you don't spend more than 60, then your tariff is reduced. But if you are spending more than that, I think your tariff, you have to pay the required tariff. So I think it's up to you, Mr. Simbeye, to control your spending so that you become within the 60 allowed kilowatts, I think, per month. But I think the disparity should be there because if they say they're using the standard rate, because there are 3 tariffs, I think, tariff 1, tariff 2, and tariff 3. There's tariff for domestic, commercial, and industrial. And I think each of these, they've got a different rate. And I think to my knowledge, the persons who are paying most are tariff 2, I think, which is of commercial. They're paying much more than the tariff 1 and those tariff which is being paid by industry. So I think they're doing that with a specific purpose. I think so, because for industries, Tanzania used to have very high tariff rates between 14 to 15 US dollar cents per kilowatt hour. But I think now we are the least in terms of how much we pay in terms of electricity to TANESCO. In terms of the industry, I think we are paying, our rates are between 12 to 13, which is the lowest in the region. We are the cheapest in terms of electricity in the region.
In
Now?
industry.
Yes,
In industry.
in the
Only
industry.
in industry.
I'm not so sure about the other
Not
categories.
domestic.
But the thing is, you can see, you can claim that we are the cheapest in terms of the quantity, but you haven't considered the quality aspect. You see,
And the reliability.
that is what I'm saying.
Yes.
You may have the
Cheap rate.
rate, but your quality, you are forced to use generators for production. But generators are not for production, they are standby. You are supposed to use for 3 hours, you are using it for the whole day. So in the end of the day, if you are calculating how much you have spent on your generator and how much you have spent on TANESCO electricity and make some arithmetic, you find that our power cost is the highest in the region. We may have around 17, 18 US dollar per cents. So I think when we are talking about rates alone, yes, is a
Doesn't tell the whole picture.
Yeah, cannot tell the whole
Whole
thing.
picture.
You have
Yeah.
to take about the quality of electricity, which Tanzania misses. Like what is going on now is power cuts. For those people we have seen, our colleague here say, he has a school, he has to run his school, he has to use the generator. How much he's spending? It's huge. So I think the rates, yes, you can say, oh, my rate is small, or my rate is higher. But if we don't get that electricity is nothing. So I think, yes, there's differential in terms of rates between these tariffs, but I think how they have put the rates, I don't know the magic behind, but it is true. If you are spending less than 60 units per month, you are getting less. So it's up to you but if you use, say, 60, that means you are going to use only for lighting. At this rate, at this age of development,
and the heat in Dar es Salaam.
and the heat in Dar es Salaam,
How?
how you can't. So I think they have to consider for especially to harmonize. I don't know how they are working on developing the rates, but they have to harmonize rates across all these tariffs so that there should not be huge discrepancies of the rates, because since others are paying for others, you know, within the customers, there are those customers who are subsidizing other people, and that should not be happening.
Yes. One can understand with the industries, with manufacturing and all that, but for domestic consumption, there are basic certain items which you have, but they want to restrict you, Joseph. You don't have 3 fridges and
Yes.
2 freezers and
That's why, you know,
air condition.
there was a time I talked about Tanzania moving towards industrialization, at the same time killing the middle class. I talked about this at this program, because if you kill the middle class, they are the spenders, so you won't have that industrialization. You know, when Tony was speaking here, he reminded me of something. You know, maybe something TANESCO should do a very thorough investigation where they have these power cuts like they're having. Maybe there might be industries there that are not officially known to be industries,
clandestine.
that are clandestine, that are operating and consuming this power more than they should. Because if you say maybe 60,000 per month, and people that stay in that area can afford to pay 60,000 to have their power, then you have somebody who rents the same house, but he has some small industry there with a machine that consumes a lot of electricity and is using a lot of power. Obviously, the others are going to be affected. Maybe it's time TANESCO did a thorough study or thorough investigation in the areas where this is happening. If it's not a question of distribution, if there is enough power going to this area, according to the density per square kilometer of the people that stay there and their incomes, when you look at all those things, you know, you come up with that what we are supplying there is enough for the people that stay there. If what is going there is not enough, then there should be somewhere something is wrong, or somebody is creating. And I'm not trying to be bad to the Chinese, but the Chinese are fond of doing such things. They create an industry where they're not supposed to be. You know,
In an
and-
industrial, in a residential area.
residential area. And they will be consuming a lot of power. Maybe that is what is happening in Mbezi and the other areas. Maybe TANESCO, maybe from this program, they should take it up and look at these areas. What is happening? Are there people that are, running industry? Not only the Chinese, maybe even Tanzanians that have small industries with machines that are consuming a lot of power and affecting the others. Because where I stay, we are not having these problems. Why this area?
Tony.
I think you raise an interesting point, but it goes back to what we were saying, that perhaps TANESCO, as it is not equipped to deal with this kind of thing because it's too big. If you had somebody who's responsible only for, let's say, Kinondoni district, Kinondoni zone, and a company dealing with electricity, they will notice immediately that we have 20 customers in Mikocheni in an area with a transformer that is capable of supplying 100, but there is power fluctuation. Why? And they will be able to deal with that. TANESCO as a national organization is too big, so we need to
Bundle it.
make that decision. No, bring competition. Look, it used to cost not much money to get a telephone line, but you would wait for 5 years before they give you the telephone
TTCL line.
When it was, a TTCL line. Even though in those years you had to unscramble the thing, it was the lowest technology of all. I remember using those telephones in Shinyanga and Karagwe. When they brought in competition, those competitors brought in capital. They bring in technology. They bring in expertise. Even if sometimes maybe we don't like companies to bring in expatriates, but we should take the lesson of Deng Xiaoping. It doesn't matter the color of the cat if it can catch the mice. I would like to see us bring in people from outside who have experience dealing with this kind of problem and transferring that knowledge to our people. After 3-4 years, it will be our people running the program and making sure we get regular electricity. The school I'm working for, I don't own it. St. Joseph's University in Tanzania is a big organization that has spawned universities in other countries like Zambia and South Sudan. It's owned by missionaries, nuns, daughters of Mary. If they heard I was claiming I'm the owner, they would. I'd be in trouble.
It was a slip of the tongue.
No, it was.
You don't own any school. You're too poor to own any.
I
school.
wish, but it is. It's the sisters who are the administrators. I'm sure every day they are scratching their heads. How are we going to manage to keep the budget when we are running generators every day?
Yeah. Joseph.
Yes, sir.
You've written so much about TANESCO, power, electricity, supply, and all these. Can you recall, in the past, there were basic and fundamental problems, which we discussed in this program many a times.
Yes.
Are those still persisting today? Have they been resolved or not? Is there been an attempt, to the best of your knowledge, to resolve these problems?
TANESCO, like Tony said, we should give credit where it's due. TANESCO has changed a lot, for the better, even though it's trying to go backwards. A lot of improvements have been made in TANESCO, in terms of infrastructure, interacting with their customers when it matters.
Although Wukamoti says it's not positive, it's not good.
But they've come a long way, like he said. They've come a long way. TANESCO is not the TANESCO, but there was somebody who traveled he's part of our group where I stay. He traveled to Arusha. When he came back, he said, I'm surprised, here we are interacting with TANESCO. When I went to Arusha, it's the TANESCO of old, They've done a lot of things, but it seems they are stuck somewhere. Maybe it's time TANESCO, the people that run TANESCO, even they are presidential appointees, let them be given the room to hire and fire. You know, they should be given room to hire and fire. Because if they don't have, you know, they are given these organizations and their hands are tied at the back, they will never do anything. If they think TANESCO, leaving out the experts that they have, the engineers and the technicians, if they think they have extra staff that they want to get rid of, so that the company becomes more efficient, like it's run by the private sector, let them do that. Because if the MD is appointed by the president, but does he have the power to hire and fire? Because that's very important. Mr. Kamoto would tell you, it's very important when you have in management, you can hire and fire. Because if you don't have that power, there will be people that will be messing up. All you can do is transfer them.
So you'll be moving musical chairs.
You'll be mark timing, like they say in the army. You'll be mark timing. You'll be just where you are. But to be honest with you, TANESCO, they've done a lot of things. The government has invested a lot of money. The World Bank has helped us. The Millennium Challenge account has helped us. There are lines that have been upgraded to transmit more power. The only thing is we haven't done that much to connect to the Southern African power pool, where we're supposed to connect through Pensolo in Zambia. I don't know where that has ended.
But we're still selling power to neighboring countries, don't we?
You can't sell power when you're not in that pool. You can't.
Aren't we supplying power currently?
The power that you're talking about, I think it's in Sumbawanga. It's just the normal lines, the line that comes to your area. You have a line that goes into Zambia. It's like on the Uganda with Tanzania, we have a similar arrangement. But what I'm talking about is we are members of Southern African Power Pool, but we're not active members. We need to connect so that, whenever we have problems with power, we can buy spot power, what they call spot power, Southern African Power Pool. We are not active members. We should connect with Zambia. When you connect with Zambia, we are connected to South Africa, Mozambique, and all the others.
Okay.
But they have done a lot.
Now, Tony, I see you wanted to come in here very quickly.
Yes, I'm thinking there are things TANESCO can do by getting out of the traditional management style. What has happened in your area, in Tabata and Ilala, is maybe there is a manager who has decided to think outside the box. Instead of advertising in TV and newspapers, which cost money, an advert in the newspaper can cost 1 million shillings. He's used modern communication. TANESCO needs to learn how to use social media, how to use groups, so that, one, we can inform them if there are people who are stealing electricity, because that's a problem. Two, we can inform them when there is a problem. They can give us feedback if there is something we need to do as customers. It should be a partnership. It seems there are TANESCO districts or provinces that have not really taken advantage of modern technology and modern communication to make sure there is partnership between them as a service provider and us customers and
consumers. Okay.
Yes.
Very quickly, we have to wind up now. We're left with 5 minutes. So we start with you, Tony, and we'll go this way to come out to wind up. So basically, Tony, what are the major challenges do you think are there, if any, that affect or that will affect power supply? Assured, the Tanzanians will be assured of adequate and qualitatively electricity supply.
I think there will be enough and excess capacity in power generation in the next 2 or 3 years.
You're taking into account the Stegler Gorge?
Plus Stegler Gorge. Even now, what we have is...
if it comes.
Even now, what we have is quite sufficient. They need to address issues with the distribution.
Okay.
And TANESCO needs to think outside the box. The traditional way of communicating, the traditional way of doing business is no longer working. Look at companies that are successful. like Google or Facebook, their bureaucracy has
Alibaba.
been bureaucracy has been limited. TANESCO has many workers. We can be volunteers only if they are ready to involve us, to listen to ideas, and to put those ideas into account.
Yeah.
Very quickly,
You know,
Tony.
since there's been a great improvement in power generation, transmission, and supply, I think TANESCO as a whole should learn from Ilala. You know, create this thing and let it go countrywide so that it's interactive. There may be problems that are happening in those areas. If they could be communicated like WhatsApp, like in a group in the area, they should learn from the manager in Ilala. You know, what has he done? How is it working? You know, maybe they should now replicate that throughout the country.
Tony
Maybe even
says-
those problems would.
Tony says he's thinking outside the box.
Yes, he's thinking outside the box. I
Very
like my
quickly.
manager.
Yes.
Yeah,
very
for
quickly, last.
me actually, I think the future of TANESCO and the sustainable kind of medicine for these irregular power cuts, I think is at the downstream of TANESCO activities, that is at the distribution. And as I've said, the only way to do that is to allow competition. TANESCO can as well compete, but other players in the distribution should be allowed.
To come.
Thus we create competition and hence efficiency. If we don't do that, we think TANESCO is going to be, there'll be a magic to make it TANESCO at the downstream to be efficient. I think that will take years and years. So I think we need to think outside the box, that even the other players, the private sector, can do that job.
All right. My panelists, Samuel, we have to wind up now. I thank you very much for your analysis of the current power problems in the country, and especially Dar es Salaam. We don't know whether other regions are experiencing the same problems, but thank God, you say TANESCO has done tremendous work, has improved from where they were, but probably much needs to be done. And you know, particularly for the manufacturing sector, I think they moved a step forward than in the past to probably ensuring that there's a constant electricity and quality electricity to the manufacturing sector. And we know the manufacturing sector, the big ones are in Dar es Salaam, in Mwanza, in Tanga, and somehow in Mbeya. So I hope all those areas don't suffer these irregular cuts. But for those of us in Dar es Salaam, as Tony says, as Joe says, maybe TANESCO can learn a leaf or so from the Ilala TANESCO zonal manager, who is thinking outside the box, and participation of the private sector has been spoken, has been raised many a times on this program, but it seems no action has been taken. The fact that Tony says this thing is so huge, maybe we need to be diversified. It needs to be unbundled so that it concentrates on the major, most expensive areas, like for example, distribution and transmission, and let distribution be done by the private sector, and particularly if we can regionalize the powers and the companies. We have, I don't know how many regions now, is it 20, 21 regions now? We can combine, we can make it zonal companies.
They have different regions.
Yes.
The TANESCO have different regions.
Yes.
Different from those that we have.
For the administrative regions, they
Yes.
have their own regions.
They have their own
Yes, but
regions.
this could be converted to
Yeah.
to,
You're
to,
right, yes.
to small regional companies
More regions
with the
in
full
Dar es Salaam.
with the full responsibility to handle
Yeah.
all these things, and particularly distribution, and leave the major role of generation and transmission to the biggest
transmission.
company.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, my panelists. Unfortunately, TANESCO, you have missed the opportunity to be part of the discussion today. But I'm sure you'll learn a lot when you watch this program on Monday. Viewers, that's all we have for you today. Until next Monday at the same time, and on Thursday at 15 hours for the repeat program. On behalf of my very able panel, Hussein Kamote, Joseph Kamwamnyange, Tony Zakaria, and TBC Television Center crew. Thank you, viewers, and goodbye.
Thank you very much.